Modern AAA games have hyper-realistic graphics that try to capture the real world in a game. You know what else can do that? My eyes. This obsession with trying to digitally recreate reality instead of focusing on games as an interactive experience has led the industry down the wrong path. How did we get this far off track? The history of video game graphics is long and violent. Like doom violent. Even more than now, console makers like Sega and Nintendo were pushing graphical processing power as a selling point for their consoles. Well, ours is better than theirs because ours is 16-bit and theirs is only 8-bit. Like 16 bits of what? Rice? I'm still gonna starve. Companies threw out numbers like 16-bit and 8-bit at elementary school children like it actually mattered. Because it did. You see, back then improvements in technology and game development were rapid. You might even call it supersonic. The 16-bit consoles like the SNES only came a few years after the 8-bit consoles like the NES. That's a massive improvement in a really short amount of time. I mean, we went from this to this. Now that is something to be excited about. But the new consoles weren't exciting just because of fancy graphics. Games were getting better, longer, more complicated. Imagine playing Dragon Quest for 10 hours and then jumping over to the SNES to play Final Fantasy VI, where you get a 40-hour story-driven adventure with twists and turns and new gameplay mechanics, and you're doing fighting game inputs on an active time battle turn-based system. It's crazy. The upgrades in graphics back then also came with an upgraded video game. The gameplay, story, music, and characters were all increasing along with the graphics. Then the 3D era hit. Moving from the Super Nintendo to the PlayStation 1 is like putting on glasses for the first time. Oh my gosh, the camera, it moves? I can walk back into the screen? It's like real life! Have you heard those words before? Yes, the move from 2D to 3D was the thing that spawned the "it looks like real life" situation. People were playing Vagrant Story like, what? This guy looks like me! Ocarina of Time on the N64, oh my gosh, these trees are better than my trees outside in the real world! I can't even imagine how it's gonna look better than this. Without a doubt, this was the biggest visual jump games have ever made. The move to 3D brought games into a perspective that we could understand because of our own experience living in, 3D. See, there's three dimensions. And unless we start seeing time or the vast expanse of multiverses all concurring simultaneously, the move from 2D to 3D will remain the biggest jump we've ever made in visuals. And this is where the problem begins. Since the N64 PS1 era, many developers have shifted from trying to make a better game to trying to make a game with better graphics. The actual visual difference has decreased every single generation, with the 7th generation being a smaller jump over the 6th generation, the 8th generation being an even smaller jump over the 7th, and the current 9th gen consoles being such a small jump over the PS4 and Xbox One era that they can still play those games despite being 10 years old. Gaming companies pour hundreds of millions of dollars into making new projects look slightly better than the old ones, but they don't put any time or energy into making them more fun than the last one. When was the last time a big AAA game came out that was more fun, polished, and innovative than the previous game in the series, instead of just better looking? I can hardly think of any. Fallout 76 was about 1/100,000th as good as Fallout 3. But what was the big marketing push for this game, Todd? I'll let you explain.
16 times the detail.
Oh yeah, that's right. Bethesda decided to devote all of their time and attention to making the game look way more detailed instead of trying to make it way more fun. Did it look way better than Fallout 4? No, because we're hitting the soft cap for graphics. Was it more fun for players? Let me tell you this, I actually enjoy sitting around waiting for my water to boil to make my evening tea than I would have playing Fallout 76. So there's your answer. A lot of players don't care about 4K resolutions, 60 FPS gaming, or even ray tracing. In fact, I would say over 120 million people don't care. Yes, it's Nintendo time. You see, in 2006, despite having battled in the graphics wars for 2 decades, Nintendo decided to bow out of the ring and do something truly radical. Make fun games. The PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 were battling out in HD, and Nintendo released the Wii. This was like a reverse 180-degree spinning handbrake J-turn. What? You're not going to HD like us? Your company's gonna die. The Wii wasn't even in the same definition as the other two consoles. Nintendo decided to focus more on the experience of playing their games rather than how they looked, and the result was tremendous. I heard grandparents who had never seen a video game in their life talking about playing on the Wii. Time to go bowling. My parents were the ones that bought our Wii as a present to themselves. I usually had to be the one asking for consoles and games for my birthday, but this time around, they got it themselves. It's like the best reverse Uno Kart in the game. From that point, Nintendo has continued to innovate and make more and better games focused on fun gameplay. They don't care about catching up in graphics at all. They've gone a completely different direction from the other two companies. I told a friend recently that for me, the Nintendo Switch is the only console that still gives me that magic feeling of gaming I had when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like waking up on Saturday morning, you got nothing to do, no homework coming up, you're just gonna call over a friend, you guys are gonna play games all day. That's the feeling I still get from the Switch, and I can't get it from anything else. There's something about it, about the first-party games Nintendo puts out that are just different from everything else we're getting. Games are interactive. They should be made first and foremost to be a fun experience for the player to engage with. Fun is what's important in games, not graphics, because graphics don't matter.